I have OCD, therefore I can touch you. Back when I was working my first job, I was stocking shelves. The tag on the back of my shirt was sticking out, which I know isn't proper, but whatcha gonna do? This one customer, who appeared to be relatively elderly, was walking behind me when he noticed that my tag was sticking out. Now, apparently this man had OCD and one of his triggers was shirt tags sticking out. Now, the obvious thing to do would have been for him to say, "Excuse me, young man. I don't mean to meddle, but your tag on the back of your shirt is sticking out. Due to my OCD, I am triggered by this, so could you please place it back into your shirt?" That would be the obvious thing to do. But instead, he takes it upon himself to do this task for me. He grabs my tag and stuffs it back into my shirt, causing me to obviously turn around in shock. The old bastard was smiling as he told me, "Sorry. I have OCD. I'm sorry, but having OCD does not give you a free pass to touch anyone. Especially if the person in question is a minor." He's lucky there weren't any managers around to see that, because he probably would have left the store at the end of their shoe if they witnessed that. Thankfully, I never encountered a situation like that again. Moral of the story: thinking that mental illness excuses shitty behavior is not just a Gen Z thing. I also have OCD, and nope, that's freaking gross. Don't touch people. Oftentimes people say OCD when they mean wanting things their way to be neat. I have OCD myself, and I would OFC ask before I touched someone if it had to do with a compulsion. Saying that, it's never a good idea recovery-wise to do the compulsion. But yeah, totally not an okay thing for them to do, whether they have OCD or not. Some people overreact to touch. PTSD is real, and it doesn't have to be from military service. I know of someone who tried that same maneuver, and the young woman reacted with an immediate defensive swing of her arm and elbowed the person in the face. She floored him with a black eye. Don't touch people, ever. It is an invasion of bodily autonomy and personal space. True story. When I was in college, I was in a local store when I felt something pulling on my neck and saw a look of total horror on the face of the friend who was with me. An employee in the store bit off the plastic bit that holds the price tag. I'd just bought the top next door and changed into it because I'd spilt coffee on my original top. Pulling off the price tag but leaving the plastic bit because I didn't have anything to cut it with. This lady, however, knew none of that. In the middle of her workday, she just saw it stick out of my collar and, I repeat, bit it off. Just can't stand seeing those. Sorry. I have kleptomania. Does that mean I can steal whatever I want? After all, I have a condition. Obvious answer is no. It's up to you to handle your own shit, no matter what that shit is. I have OCD, and I would never force my compulsions on a stranger. Also, touching strangers is gross. Super strange that someone thinks they deserve to touch you. Old people are entitled AF. He probably didn't have OCD. It's just something people say to excuse their behavior. People who genuinely have OCD know there is a huge difference between an impulse and a compulsion. For me, the obvious thing to do would be to walk past what was making me uncomfortable as quickly as possible and fret that it existed. But I have anxiety-linked checking, and I'm not great with strangers. Both what you said was obvious and what the stranger did would be avoided at all costs. Haha. I doubt he had OCD. He was just a nasty pervert who wanted to touch you. I also have OCD, but also have the decency to ask for consent before touching someone. Hell, I wouldn't even touch my coworker's shirt to get a feel of the different fabric without explicitly asking, "Do you mind if I touch?" I have OCD, but I also have crushing social anxiety, so I will choose to do nothing and just stay awake late at night staring at the ceiling. Thinking of the tag that got away. That's a good way to get throat punched. Punches him in the face. Sorry, I have PTSD. Grins. I have OCD but I don't touch people. It's never okay. My compulsions are never to touch anyone. It's usually having to check my door locks 30 times and clean surfaces until I ruin my rags. I don't like when people touch me. But I hate when someone I don't know touches me. I don't usually get aggressive about it, but I do get angry. He is just using OCD as an excuse to be an ass. I think the man may have confused OCD with OPD, obnoxious personality disorder. The latter isn't on the DSM, which is odd since so many are afflicted. Lol. OCD in this scenario means old creepy dude. Don't touch people. OCD is not an excuse. And no, it was never acceptable to tuck in a stranger's shirt tag. Some people did it because they felt they had a right to correct others' fashion faux pas. Just because the correct EE was gracious does not mean they were appreciative. One thing I hate is to see a tag hanging out. I will mention it but won't put my hands on anyone unless they ask me to put the tag inside their clothing. I have the urge to do this all the time but know it's inappropriate and have self-control not to. Yeah, I highly doubt he had OCD and just doesn't like tags sticking out. Point 2. One day the right person will kinetically correct this issue for him. Don't we learn as children to keep our hands to ourselves? You are giving him way too much credit for thinking he actually has OCD. I highly doubt he really has OCD and instead is a double asshole for using it as a synonym for liking things neat. Yay, that wouldn't fly with me. Not sure why. But I hate being touched. Unless you're my wife or family. I literally cannot stand random touching by any stranger. Even if it's a hand on the shoulder with a right behind you at work. I'm pretty sure that thinking that mental illness excuses shitty behavior is like a quintessential boomer trait. In the 70s and 80s and maybe 90s it was pretty normal for people to tuck a tag in for someone without their permission, especially if the tucker was older than the tucky. In recent years people are generally more considerate of each other's space. And it's less of a norm. Back in the day, no one wanted their tag sticking out. So if someone did that to you, it might startle you, but you'd also say thanks. Because it was considered helpful. TBH, I'm tired of all the fucking MH excuses. I grew up with my stepmom who had major OCD. One of her major triggers was tags sticking out. I never saw her touch anyone else's clothing to fix the tag. Even my dad. She would always politely say, "Excuse me. Your tag is sticking out." OCD is not a reason to invade someone's personal space, especially when it can be handled politely. From within your own personal space bubble. Yeah, the response to that is, well, I got PTSD. Therefore I can deck you. Another OCD diagnosed person chiming in to say, oh hell no. You don't touch people. That's assault as far as I'm concerned. All you can and should do is say, hey. I'm sorry, but your tag is activating my compulsions. Could you tuck it back in? Sorry to bother you. Thank you. Like, be nice and keep to your own personal space bubble. Tags drive me crazy. If I had $1 for every time I have asked a perfect stranger, may I fix your tag? I could go on a very nice vacation, complete with spa services and top-shelf liquor. I sympathize with his itch to tuck in stray labeling. I do not approve of meddling with people's clothes without permission. Shrieking and then saying loudly, oh, you startled me. You really must not sneak up on people and grab them. May or may not get the message across, but it is nearly as satisfying as a slap cursing without the repercussions. I am diagnosed with OCD and have been since 9 years old. People often use OCD to mean perfectionist if I saw something that triggered my OCD. That's my problem, not the other person's. It would be gross to touch someone due to a compulsion. And not to mention, it's best to refrain from acting on a compulsion anyways, as the more you repeat it, the bigger the obsession becomes. As someone with diagnosed OCD, that person is a liar and a creep. Most people with OCD don't even like touching others' contamination. I feel like the older generation, 1, does shit like that, and 2, uses the term OCD super lightly. I had an older coworker who would come up behind me and touch my hair saying, "Oh, did you re-dye? It looks nice." Some people are inappropriately touchy and clueless about it. I don't have OCD that I'm aware, and tags hanging out drive me nuts. My wife laughs at me when we go out and see one. While I always want to tuck them in, I never would. I have autism and CPTSD. You can't touch me. This is your final warning. If you proceed to touch me without my permission, I do not accept responsibility for what I might do. In defense of my personal space, I have been known to bite, kick, punch, twist people's arms until they're laying on the floor and pinning them under my ass until they apologize and being verbally vicious. Consider yourself warned. There will be no further warnings. That's what I do. I try and make sure other people are around to hear the warning so that I have someone around to be like, "You were warned." That's way there's no he said, she said. Agads. You know, I'm just waiting for one of these guys with OCD to meet someone with PTSD. I don't think I have OCD or PTSD. But I'll guarantee you that if someone starts poking fingers down my shirt, I'm turning around. Swinging a fist. No one has a right to put their hands on me. Yes, I do believe in OCD and PTSD. But I put those in quotation marks because it sounds like this guy was just using it as an excuse. Lol, sure man. Ew, he's using OCD as an excuse for touching others. That behavior is only okay if 1, the person knows you, and 2, sees you coming. I would never do that to a stranger. I might point it out, but never touch another person, excluding life-saving instances like helping someone who is choking or bleeding out, or helping protect a seizure patient's head. He's lucky I don't work there. It would be a bad move to let me know his OCD demands I do something. I'd wear the tag incorrectly non-stop after that comment. I have OCD and it occurs when men touch me. I have to hit them in the throat, then kick them in the balls. I'm thinking about getting therapy, but I haven't been touched lately. OCD is not an excuse to touch someone else's belongings or person without permission. 90 Sure, this person did not have OCD. Many who really have it don't advertise that they have a mental illness. Touching me is the easiest way to get me to go from 0 to Karen in 3 seconds. I'd have made a scene and demanded they be banned from the premises. Do not touch people. I have OCD, and no, it doesn't give you the right to touch people. It sucks that that's the compulsion trigger for this person, though. As a person diagnosed with OCD, my disorder is something I have to put forth the effort to deal with. A big part of that is understanding that my triggers do not override the personal space or property of other people. I have an overwhelming urge to reorganize everything, from pantries, to movie collections, to bookshelves, to furniture, based on a system that will make my brain much happier. But that isn't appropriate. It certainly isn't appropriate for me to touch a random stranger because of my triggers. In the bus the other day, the woman in the seat in front of me had the tag sticking out, and I practically had to sit on my hands. Because you don't just touch other people unless it's an absolute emergency. Had someone done that to me, I would not be surprised to find myself with fists flying. That man was just rude and nasty. I work retail and I often dye my hair. Had this lady come up to me and start playing with my hair, she was going on about how beautiful it was, and acting like this was a normal interaction to have with a random stranger. I felt so violated. Why do people? I have anger issues, so I can therefore punch you throwing kisses. As someone with OCD, I think you should have yanked the tag right back out. I also have OCD, and since I know it's a disorder that stems from control, I know better than to try and control other people, their belonging, how they dress, how to manage their space, etc. No diagnosis gives you the right to anyone's personal space. I had someone actually grab me by the back of my t-shirt because he wanted to read what was on the back of it. IDK how people think they can cross that line. A lady did this to me at a concert once, loudly crying. Her excuse was, "I'm a mother, it's okay." $100 says he doesn't have OCD. He's one of those people who are like, "I'm so OCD," when really they are just an asshole. No, you can't touch me now, fuck off. That reminds me of last week. I was sitting due to health reasons. Customer kept walking so close her leg was in my knees. I'd adjust the chair away, and she'd inch back to touching me. When I finally stood up and used the chair as a buffer, the woman said, "I don't speak English well, so I had to be close to hear you." What? I have OCD, and that's the last thing I'd want to do. Yes, seeing tags sticking out bothers me too, but I only correct the tags on myself, my husband, or my kids. He might have had other intentions as an excuse to get close to you and touch you. Lol, this was a plot point in the show Ally McBeal. Guy touching butts said it was due to his OCD. I legitimately have OCD, and I'd never touch a stranger without permission. I probably wouldn't ask to touch a stranger. I have OCD and anxiety. In a case where something really bothers or triggers me in public, I will remove myself from that situation. My OCD is mine to deal with and manage appropriately. It doesn't give me the right to touch someone or demand anything from them. I have OCD, and it's triggering for me to even tell people, let alone touch them and announce it. LMAO. What a dick. Should have slapped him across the face. Good God, I hate that. I have had people do it to me many times, and I hate it every single time. I would have hand wave smacked him and then said, "Sorry, I have autism and don't like to be touched. I can't help it." Sounds like he wanted an excuse to touch you. People shouldn't play that card, it's gross. That's not OCD. If he had OCD, he wouldn't have been smiling, he'd have been apologetic and embarrassed because he was unable to control himself. What that is him trying to feel better about himself by exercising some stupid level of power over you while you're working by violating your personal boundaries in a "what are you gonna do about it" kind of way. I have OCD. Last time I was at the DMV, the guy seated in front of me in the waiting room not only had his tag sticking out, but the back of his collar was messed up. It killed me, but I didn't touch it. Not my body. Not my right to touch. OCD sucks. It's made me life a living hell at times, but it doesn't have the right to intrude on anyone else. If you have OCD and someone else's behavior or attire bothers you, look away or leave the area. Your illness doesn't give you the right to micromanage other people, stranger or family or otherwise. You're only allowed to micromanage yourself. No, you're not allowed to tell them to fix the tag. You don't know why it's out. Could be a sensory issue for them. But removing the tag means not having fiber blend info, cleaning and ironing info, or size info on the article of clothing. Honestly, the world's not gonna end if you can't control someone else under the guise of being OCD. My mom would have done the same thing. Maybe the rules were different in the olden days. Thankfully, the issue wasn't that your pants were unzipped. Big fucking deal he tucked your tag in. Okay, it's not something the average person does, but who gives a rat's ass? People are too fucking precious these days. My husband and I were out to dinner on Saturday. Across from us was a woman in a pretty sparkly shirt and slacks. Full makeup, jewelry, and her entire tag sticking out of her shirt. After I approached her and said, I am not trying to be forward, but your tag is sticking out of your shirt and I think you should know. She started reaching for it and I said, let me. I put the label away and she was ever so grateful. We laughed and joked a few times during dinner and I wished them have a good night and she thanked me again. I would want to know if I had things sticking out too. That's almost as bad as saying I'm autistic, so you can't be upset at my brutal honesty. Guarantee they aren't OCD and in my example autistic. Just an entitled prick. I've had people do that to me. I just thank them and move along. One time I was standing talking to an older lady and she just casually started rolling up my sleeve. When she got done, I asked her if she wanted to do the other one now. Poor old thing blushed like fire. That's just wrong. I'm similar to the old man. Anything out of place makes me physically itch. If I see someone with a bit of fluff on their shirt or something, I have to force myself not to reach out and fix it. Because I know it's wrong to just touch someone. I just say, you have X that needs to be fixed. Whether it's a bit of fluff or a tag sticking out. And if someone touches me unexpectedly, especially where I can't see, I flinch and would probably end up accidentally hitting them. My response would have been, I have PTSD and will knock you out for grabbing me without my consent. Whoa, you all are being disrespectful to this person's disability. People can't and shouldn't be responsible for their actions. It's always, oh shit, I almost wrote that without dying laughing. Good God. Let the next one that dictate the way our society will behave. He probably didn't have OCD. It's just something people say to excuse their behavior. People who genuinely have OCD know there is a huge difference between an impulse and a compulsion. Oh, you have OCD? Well, I have UUP, uncontrollable urge to punch. Wanna see it in action? That's not OCD. That's being a perv. That was totally inappropriate. If other bothered him that much, he should have walked away. Maybe he just wanted to touch up. That is gross, a total stranger touching someone. I have PSTD, therefore I can punch you out for touching me. Who is more entitled except the animal leaving their tag out? OCD has one of the highest crossovers of any other mental disorder with narcissistic personality disorder. This is a lot of posts for someone putting a tag back in your shirt. No need to cry over spilt milk. I expected a dramatic story based on your post title. But this is such a nothing story. I get it wasn't strictly necessary to fix your tag manually. But you're really overacting. Sounds like you are really sensitive if you think this is such a big deal. I have a gun. Therefore I will shoot you. OMG, are you okay? I haw you like a jillion numbers to counselors. To be honest, many people with OCD cannot help themselves reacting to a trigger. They know it's wrong, but it's like their OCD instinct reacts before the message gets to the brain. So you need to cut this guy some slack. It's not like he tugged your boob back into your bra. Look, our brains are fucking wildly powerful and unique. Some of the most impressive people in history were disabled. Make of it what you can. Thrive with the talents you do have and people can succeed. Old guy tried to do what he saw as a good deed. Not everything is an affront to common courtesy or one's personal space. If you have an issue, open your mouth at the moment, address it, and go on to live a better day. You're a dork. Some dude put your tag inside your shirt for you and you feel assaulted. Fucking nation of wusses. Really? It was probably more of an automatic reaction. Like you'd do for a friend without thinking. My ex was a security guard at a lingerie fashion show and inadvertently tucked in a label sticking out of a model's knickers. He realized his mistake immediately and was mortified. She was very gracious. I bet you wouldn't have been offended had the person been a hot young man. Women not sure what you go for. Sure, it's rude, but your level of anger seems a bit overdone. There. I said it. Now let me have it, lol. Edited to add he touched OP's tag. Not their private parts. A lot of you acting like he fondled him her. Also, for those of you minimizing OCD, you have a lot to learn. I also have OCD. When I see dangling balls I have to kick them. Wham. One of the triggers of my OCD is being touched unexpectedly by strangers. It makes me automatically swing my fist in the general direction of wherever the touch came from. I have OCD, so if you touch me I'm freaking out. It's not actually OCD, but don't touch me if you don't want to get hit. I doubt someone with OCD would actually do such a thing. Nope. Doesn't matter, OCD or not. Elbows him directly in the teeth. Oh sorry, I'm ticklish there. WTF? I get upset by sticky out labels, but I don't just go and touch people. That's fucked up, weary cat. Sorry, I have OCD. The fuck he does. What he should have said was sorry. I'm a little bitch. No chance in hell this person has OCD. That old man was full of shit. His common misconception of what OCD is, and it, including the need of touching other people, is pretty out of sync for what we experience. Plus, if he has OC, then he would be compulsed to act upon his obsession to tuck in the tags of other people's shirts. If he has obsessive compulsive disorder, then his strange and sometimes nonsensical obsessive thoughts cause compulsive behavior to do things to get rid of those thoughts, not act upon what is a real-world trigger. Can guarantee he doesn't have OCD, he just wants to correct people's appearance with a BS excuse. That's just rude. Or he could have just said that so you wouldn't be mad. I'm 90% certain he didn't have a diagnosis. He was just a neurotic control freak. Your disorder does not override another person's autonomy. I tuck people's tags in for them because it really bothers me too. But the only people I do that to is my family or my friends. But with my friends, I let them know it's sticking out and ask them if they would like me to tuck it in for them. I would never approach a random stranger and tuck their tag in for them. I'd just let them know it's sticking out or just walk on past and leave it alone. Sorry you went through that. This sounds like a gross dude using this as an excuse to touch people. Emo. OCD has probably kept him from being arrested for touching someone. I have ADHD and OCD. And while tags being flipped out bug me, the only person I ever correct them for besides myself is my husband. But he's given consent. If I see a random person or even a friend with a tag out, I politely let them know. There's almost a 0% chance this dude actually had OCD. People just throw that phrase around if any random ass little thing bugs them. I would have told him straight to FK off and say I had Tourette's. Lucky you're not overly defensive and spun around swinging. I have a rule: never touch people in public. Never speak to a stranger in person the way you do online. And never ever offer a reach around to a cop after adjusting their weapon. I don't think it was necessarily shitty behavior. But he shouldn't have touched you without permission. I would have said you're lucky I didn't immediately turn around and deck you out of self-defense. Because I have OCD too about people touching me without permission. Your OCD is not my I'm going to talk to my manager and have you banned for touching me inappropriately. I have impulse control and rage disorders, therefore I can punch you in the mouth. I have ADHD and potentially autism. My psychologist recommended I get tested for it. But I don't see the point as an adult. This means I sometimes have sensory issues. There are times I cannot have the tag on me. I'd be doubly pissed if someone did this to me: 1, for touching me without my consent, and 2, for assuming it was a mistake and subjecting me to what I was trying to avoid. I don't think that was OCD. I think he was just saying it to justify what he did. Most people who say I have OCD, in fact, don't have OCD. They are just nitpickers. I used to put people's tags back in for them. Not out of OCD, but I thought it was a nice thing to do. I grew up where strangers did things like that with no ulterior motive. Then I found out not everyone appreciates it and stopped. This person sounds like they did it knowing it may upset someone and did it anyway. Sorry, young man. I have OCD and your pocket was sticking out. Your zipper wasn't all the way up. Oh, now my zipper isn't all the way. You could just help me out. My OCD and arthritis. You know, being old is so you could just touch me. Zip me back up. The problem I see is that you're lacking on understanding about handing your OCD where it's best to. Think how long before your OCD starts acting up, because it's basically impossible not to have a situation where wouldn't be physically touched multiple times in your life. How I know so much about OCD is because I OCD for 20 years, where I learned to control it with coming with backup plans ahead of time, then just freak out every time when I know the situation will happen beyond my control. I don't like being touched out of the blue. You do that and I will slyly make that well known and put a very white hot spotlight you want to run from on you fast. They will think twice as I'm ruthless. Pretty sure a swift response worthy of our fight porn would cure that rolling on the floor laughing. I have OCD and I would never ever do that. My triggers are not others' problems. That's an easy way to get slapped in the face though. Sorry. I don't like people touching me. Which ironically can be a form of OCD. I have OCD, and last Saturday at karaoke a guy the first know quite well had a black hoodie on inside out. Which was actually only noticeable because of the white tag. It drove me crazy, so I politely pointed to the tag and said, "Excuse me, but in case you don't know, your hoodie is inside out." I didn't touch him, just pointed it out to him. My husband told me I was being rude, but the guy thanked me for having his back by not letting him walk around like that all night, especially when he was there on a first date with a young lady. OCD doesn't give you carte blanche to touch people or their food or make them uncomfortable. I can't wait to be old and a bit crazy. Just pretend rules don't apply to you. My OCD, if anything, has made me more cautious around other people, and worried they may also have similar issues. I hate when people use their mental health as an excuse for anything. Should have punched him in the face and then told him you have OCD and people touching you is a trigger. Holy shit snacks. I would have socked him. I have ADHD and will punch your freaking lights out if you commit a battery on me. Older generations use I have OCD to mean they're particular about things. I don't think he was actually trying to claim a mental illness. He may not even know what OCD is. I have some low-level OCD traits. When the Velcro on my coworkers' uniforms is out of place, I always announce that it bothers me and ask to adjust it, because it is awkward to adjust yourself when you are wearing it. It's not hard to ask. And when I get denied, I just walk away. I don't understand why people think they have the right to touch anyone without their consent, regardless of if they have OCD or not. Like people going to pop the small pimple I have on my chin that I am going to take care of as soon as it's appropriate to do so. Why you touchin' people? God, I've had people do this to me. Usually older women. They expect me to thank them, but I am so angry. I have OCD and have to punch people who touch me. What if she was hot?